The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, welcome to another edition of our program, CHW in Action, with your host, Rafael Calderon. I am a CHW, which stands for Community Health Worker, and I'm always in action to bring you the community of Nashua and all people, all my friends that watch this TV show. I just want to bring information about how to live a healthy lifestyle. The healthier you are, the more you enjoy life. That's my philosophy. And I always try to bring to you interesting, cool, and very knowledgeable people that I meet in my walks as I do my community health work. And I had the privilege of meeting Mr. Steve Amara. And I said, I have to have this man on my TV show, and I want the audience to meet him because he's got so much to offer to the community. Let's say hi. Steve, how are you?
Hi, great.
Hi.
Nice to see you, Raf.
Hey, nice to see you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm glad that you're here because I'm telling you, I see you being such a huge thing for our community. And I want people to know everything about you. Okay? I know we met at that OGM meeting, or was it the business meeting?
That's right, both actually, at the Chamber of Commerce and at the United Way's One Greater Nashua, yeah.
And we have similar energies.
We do, absolutely. Yeah. They go very well together.
Indeed. So I know a little bit about you. I think you're a very cool guy with a very cool background, okay? But for the audience, tell us who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Sure, thanks, Raf. I think it starts, I was born and raised in New Hampshire, up in Concord, New Hampshire. Lived there for 18 years when I graduated from high school. I left New Hampshire, went to school in Pennsylvania, New York, and then I lived in Asia for 15 years. Nice. I only came back to New Hampshire about 3 years ago. So I've been gone for about 20 years. And coming back has been kind of I kind of feel like a foreigner now too. You know, in One Greater Nashua, we work a lot with the immigrant and refugee population. And sometimes I feel that I'm also treated like a foreigner, even though I was born in this state. So it's interesting.
Interesting. One Greater Nashua is such an amazing program. I love the program.
It is. It's really fantastic. It's just one example of so many dynamic and devoted community organizations in Nashua. One of the reasons I've stayed for 3 years is because I've been so impressed by the energy in the community. People like yourself, people like Liz Fitzgerald, Mike Affelberg, Tracy Hatch, people in the school district, people in City Hall, Jim Donchis. I mean, just an amazing group of humanity all rallies together to try to create Nashua as a wonderful community.
Indeed, that's what makes Nashua so special. So many good people and the citizens. I mean, I tell you, I walk through the community every week. And I don't always meet someone new, but I always see something new. Yeah. And people teach you things. You learn things. I just love this community. Right.
I think most of the people I've met here have never left. You know, well, there's an interesting balance. There's the people who have been here forever and have really made Nashua the foundation for what it is, and there are all the fresh ideas and the new energy that comes in. And finding the nice balance between those two populations, I think, is a wonderful kind of opportunity to really bring Nashua kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
Yes, indeed. And okay, so now you're back. So tell us, what do you do?
Right now, well, I'm an educator. I've worked in many capacities as an administrator, as a curriculum designer, as a classroom teacher, as a mentor, a tutor, a coach, from K through college. So I've worked I worked in international schools. I was a principal of an international school in Philippines. Nice. I was the assistant director of an international school in South Korea. And the company that I work for as a consultant is, we do consulting and management in international education in both North America and Asia.
Very interesting. So how can we in Nashua use you as a consultant?
Well, I think I bring with me a kind of, an arsenal of knowledge from the way other regions in the United States and other countries in the world see education and the methods and the strategies they use to bring a child from kindergarten up into college and prepare them to be productive members of their societies. So whether it be in Korea or in China or Japan or Southeast Asia or the West Coast of the United States or the East Coast of the United States, everyone has a different way of teaching their children. And so the curriculum and instruction goes hand in hand with those different cultural needs. And I think the key to success is when the educational leaders understand their population and the needs of their population and then design the correct curriculum that meets those needs.
Interesting. What needs do you see in the educational system? And it's an open question, just because I'm just trying to learn from you.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so what do you see?
Well, I love it. I've seen that, well, let's see, filter-free. I've seen that despite the efforts by the Department of Education in New Hampshire, they have something called New Hampshire Vision 2.0, which is built upon the framework that came out in 2013. A great vision for educational innovation in New Hampshire, but it's happening too slowly. It's no surprise that not only in New Hampshire, but also in the United States in general, that our education system is not preparing the majority of our population to become productive members of the global workforce. And that basically means having the business sense, whether it be the math, the reading skills, or it has to be the entrepreneurship, the critical thinking, the problem solving that's required for engineering, the innovative thinking that's required for all of the high-tech IT industries. There was a book published by Dr. Vince Bertram in 2014 called One Nation Undertaught. And he basically laid it all out from data that had been collected since 2010, showing that the United States is underperforming. There's a lot of debate as to why that is, but in a nutshell, I believe it has to do with the core method of teaching and learning that's happening in the United States right now. For example, I think the majority of our public schools still teach based upon methods of teaching and learning that are from the 1980s.
Interesting.
And for example, there's still, and a lot of it is logistics and a lack of resources. But I think that's just an excuse, and I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But what I mean by traditional learning is that students are still kept in rows of desks. In some places, the desks are movable, so you can make learning groups together. But the materials that are still used are all based upon, in the past, tried and true methods of raising math and reading literacy. But it doesn't translate into the critical thinking that's required in this day and age. So, for example, in some of the most innovative learning environments I've been at, it's based on interdisciplinary, project-based learning. And I think PBL is common to most of your audience probably. They know that people learn better when they're given projects that they have to work at together. They learn collaboration and teamwork. They learn problem-solving skills. They learn they exercise a scientific method of trying to ask questions and discover what the answers are. But the next step in this kind of process is interdisciplinary learning. One of the problems, I think, in this day and age is that students are still being taught in compartmentalized learning. So you have your 1 hour of math as an independent unit. You have your 1 hour of English language arts, which teaches you how to speak, hopefully. You have your 1 hour of science, which explores all kinds of interesting things in a vacuum. And then you have your 1 hour of social studies, which again, doesn't relate to anything else that is going on in your life.
Right.
So the sad part about, I think, public education these days, and I see it in my kids. I have 2 wonderful boys that are in 2nd and 3rd grade, but they come home, they can't tell me what they've learned. Not because they don't want to, I can just see it on their faces. I know that they spent time, I know the teachers were actively teaching them things, but why can't kids retain what they learn?
That's a good question.
And so when you add that, when you look at 1 year of learning, and then you compound it into 3 years of elementary, 4 years, 5 years, 3 more years of middle school, 3 more years of high school. Okay, how have they spent their 12 years of education? How much of that do they retain and are they carrying with them? And how much of that prepares them for the workforce?
Beautiful. And you know what I'm trying to do. You know that I'm trying to start this Latin American Center. I keep mentioning that, hoping that I'm trying to use the law of attraction to make it happen. But what I do, or what I've done in the past, is I've taught life skills classes in high schools, and the idea is to teach kids how to find a job, job readiness skills, and prepare them to go to a good school, and teach them how to balance that, and then do the social aspect of things, the life skills, the life coaching part of it, to teach them how to manage stressful situations. Because what I see, you're so much more advanced than I am. What I see is young kids, young people that graduate from high school. If they don't go to college, they really don't have that many choices out there. So I want to do what I can to change that. And that's why I think if I had a center, if there were a center, where I could go and teach these classes consistently, I think that I could help a little with that situation that you're mentioning.
See, that's the interesting irony, Rafael, because a lot of people have the same mentality. Like I do too. It's like, okay, well, let's teach kids useful things outside of school. Isn't that crazy? I mean, shouldn't they be learning the useful things in school? Well, isn't that where our money's going? And we're investing millions of dollars into educational structures and to administrators and to teachers who are supposed to be preparing kids for life after public school. But what happens is, and this is not me speaking, it's the data. Mm-hmm. You have a large majority of foreign-born engineers and scientists who are hired by the current leaders in innovation and entrepreneurship in all corporations. Mm-hmm. They hire abroad because they say point blank, we can't get qualified workers in the United States.
I've heard that before.
Now, this problem is actually as a result of, if they're dealing with a population in their 20s now, those kids were educated back in the 90s and early 2000. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing now actually might work better for the next population in 2025. But from what I've seen, there needs to be a lot more that has to get done. There are pockets of innovation that happen even within a district, mm-hmm. or even within a state, but pockets are not enough to build a well-informed and workforce-ready, population. It has to be more overarching. That's really what I try to promote.
Very, very nice. How could I help you promote that?
Well, I think our collaborations already within the district, we have like-minded people. We run in the same circles. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm finding myself in this conversation going back to that very interesting irony that I think a lot of the education innovation that really helps kids prepare for their future is happening outside of the public schools. And that's unfortunate. Now, I'm not saying that the public schools are bad, because, for example, in Nashua, the Nashua Technology Center, run by Marianne Dustin at South, right down the road. Mm-hmm. Fantastic model of interdisciplinary, inquiry-based learning. It gets kids to want to learn something and figure it out on their own terms. And through that, they retain more of the knowledge, and they're able to apply that in the workforce.
Interesting. Okay. We got to get you out there then. We got to get you into the systems. Okay? Because I agree with you 100%.
Well, it's interesting. Another initiative that I've been working on is with a 3D printing and design company down in Chelmsford, Mass. And they've custom designed this 3D printer along with a curriculum called a spatial intelligence curriculum. And it's basically meant to get kids into this hands-on project-based learning by designing 3D objects and puzzles mm-hmm. on the computer, printing them out, and then following this spatial intelligence curriculum, getting them to think in more critical ways.
Is that like a Maker Fest?
It's similar. They actually did have a showing at the Boys and Girls Club, who, by the way, is also doing this innovative learning. But again, mm-hmm. we can count on two hands all of these initiatives that are trying to engage students and nurture their intellectual curiosity and teach them, practical skills that they can apply. But why isn't this happening more in the schools?
Well, the simple question is that at least what I found in this, because I used to teach my classes at the high school, Manchester Central High School, and then I pulled out because unfortunately there are some processes, and you really don't have if you don't have a degree in specific degree in education, it's hard to get into those processes. I mean, the high schools do, in my opinion, an excellent job in preparing those kids that are ready to take on life after school. It's those that are falling through the cracks that I worry about.
Exactly, Raf. I think you're absolutely right. The kids who have made it on their own through the system, in large part probably by a supportive community, either from their parents, their brothers and sisters, or by being engaged in these outside programs. They haven't fallen through the cracks. They've made it on their own, and when they're in high school, they are ready to take that next leap. And teachers love to work with those students. But you're absolutely right. What happens to that population who in 2010, only 30% passed a science, only 30% of our high school graduates in 2010 in the United States were passed at a competent level in terms of scientific analysis and scientific inquiry. What happens to those 30% that haven't made it through the system and have fallen? You know, how is our system designed to help those kids? And there's tons of money being thrown into that. I mean, I saw firsthand. There are great programs that are meant to reach out to these kids, but I don't see any other results. I see all of the efforts, passionate educators, passionate administrators, people on the Board of Education. All of them are working hard to reach these kids. But are the results changing? Are we getting improvement? We spend millions of dollars. Are we improving the results?
You know why that is? Because my program hasn't been implemented yet. That's why. Because you have all these fancy processes and systems and what have you to teach these kids. But in my opinion, there's no talk about life skills. There's no talk about life coaching. There's no talk about coping with real life as well as, let's say, high school life. Kids these days are dealing with stuff that you and I couldn't even dream of when we went to high school. And then you have teachers that have good hearts, great intentions, but they're not. One
Not
teacher
connecting.
told me they're not connecting. One teacher actually told me, "Well, I'm not a social worker. I'm a teacher, and I have this classroom that's overcrowded with students. What am I supposed to do?" So I told that teacher, "Well, give 5 of them to me. Let me try to teach them these life skills, this wheel of life philosophy that I use with people outside the high school, and let's see how they behave. Let's see the outcomes. I can prove to you, Steve, I have their letters from back in 2006, how they all improved their grades, became better students. I can show you how 2 of them found jobs using the job readiness skills that I taught them, right? And it had very little to do with me. It's simply that they found someone who they could connect with.
Exactly.
So that's the issue. Many amazing programs,
That's right.
but no connection.
Yeah, and so I think to get back to what we were saying, connecting what you had just said about the importance of finding someone to connect with. I think there's not a lack of passion in our educators. There's not a lack of devotion and effort and diligence. And absolutely, they sacrifice. They're not paid. They're not paid as probably as much as they work. But nevertheless, if the methods that they're using are not reaching the kids, then something has to change. And so it really has to do with the mindset of the educator. And the teachers that we have now, who are in their 20s to 50s, they learn to become teachers way back. So one example of a change that's happening in New Hampshire is through the UNH Cooperative Extension. And there's a woman there named Sarah Grovenar. She works through the Science Literacy Department. And right now, she's engaging with the UNH system to incorporate next generation science standards and a curriculum that is teaching our next generation teachers to incorporate inquiry-based learning into their instruction, no matter what the discipline. So rather than a teacher giving a worksheet or rather than a teacher assigning a textbook page, there are problems that need to be solved. And instead of giving the kids the answer or giving them a multiple choice so they can choose which one looks best, let them identify what the problem is let them in a team figure out how to try and solve the problem, and when they fail, have the endurance and the grit to continue trying. That's one thing that I'm really concerned about in our current system. It doesn't promote that endurance or that patience. Kids in our system now want to get it right the first time, and when they don't, they give up.
Right.
And then the teacher has to spend all their energy trying to maintain that curiosity when they've already lost them, because the kids just want to go out and play a video game, or they want to do something, get the quick fix from social media.
Exactly.
So there's a mindset where our educators of the 21st century have to be in sync with the technological pressures or the environmental influences of the 21st century.
I agree with you 100%. You said you were going to tell me something about education, because you know I'm all about education.
Yeah. So, well, and basically, it's just my passion for innovation and change and keeping up with the times. It makes me crazy when I see so much energy and money being invested into a system, but we're not seeing the results. We're not seeing improvements, overarching improvements in reading and math literacy. And so I just think the time is ripe for a very revolutionary change.
You know who, I'm sure you know Susan Delaney.
Yeah. Okay.
See, she and I had a beautiful conversation about that. She wants to teach kids how to use technology in a positive way,
Yes.
per se. Because I'm part of I support that movement, that 5-2-10, 5 vegetables, 5 fruits, and then 2 hours of exercise. And you have to, and 1 hour, no, only 2 hours, no more than 2 hours in front of a screen, then 1 hour of exercise, and then 0 sugary drinks. Well, those 1 hour in front of a screen, if that could be used in an educational way to engage kids, that could bring forth some of the outcomes that you're looking for. And she and I talked about it a long time, and in the back of my head, when I get my center going, I'm going to go back to her and see if we can implement that into the kids that I get into my programs.
Exactly. That reminds me of another initiative. I always get it confused. The 5-2-1-0, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Robin Abadili is the school nurse at Dr. Crispin. She does a fantastic job.
Lovely lady.
She
I've met her.
leads this up. And she works with the Leahy Clinic and is well connected with a lot of community organizations. But that's a perfect example how you can take a learning outcome or a goal to improve community health, and rather than use a textbook or lecture or a worksheet to kind of like get kids to memorize or learn the information, because they're not going to remember it anyway, get them to use a project to figure out why 5-2-1-0 is important to them. And I know Robin does this a lot with her education in the elementary school level, but there's a cool initiative right now that's happening called the Farm to School Initiative.
Yes, that is nice.
Yeah, so
That
they're
is
bringing
nice.
in gardens. What a great way. Get kids to be invested in their environment, learn about the process, the science of how their food grows, where it comes from. Go back into the classroom, study the differences between genetically modified organisms and organic, and versus there's such a universe of, in the food production industry, there's a universe of differentiation or different variations. So getting kids to think about that and become engaged with the process of their lives. Where do they get their food? How do they consume it? Empower them to control what they eat. Yes. And I think that's kind of what I guess I'm plugging for maybe in this 30-minute spot is we need to get back to empowering kids to engage with their education. And they're only going to do that if they have a vested interest and if they believe that what they're learning is valuable to them. And I think that's kind of the core of what we need to do. That's how we need to change the way we approach teaching and learning.
I would agree. So what is your vision for our lovely city of Nashua? We're talking about this education. We know that education is the key. What is your vision?
Well, I think the community leaders that are already here are doing a fantastic job across the board. The Mayor's Opioid Task Force, the One Greater Nashua, the Farm to School Initiative. I know that the school district is really trying to incorporate more STEM into their learning. Tracy Hatch at the Chamber of Commerce. There's just fantastic things that are happening. So I don't think I could interject or suggest anything that's not already being done. Like Kurt Norris at the Boys and Girls Club.
Great guy.
These fantastic people. I guess the only thing I think they're all busy already doing what they're doing, and I'm not sure where I would fit in.
Well, you could help us. You could help them find out how to get these outcomes to show how to connect with the students.
Yes, that's one thing that I've been working on. Rather than focusing on just Nashua as a city, I work with the Rotary Club out in Hollis Brookline. I am doing some work with a Chinese school out in Chester, New Hampshire. I'm up in Concord with the New Hampshire with the Department of Labor. Lisa Katz is the director of vocational rehab. So I'm trying to get. I'm down in Chelmsford and down in Lowell with UMass with some of the innovation what is it called, the innovation hub down there. So I'm trying to put all these pieces together in a regional effort to kind of bring these resources together to promote more innovation in education.
Beautiful. As I told you, time flies when we're having fun. Yeah. So we're almost done. Is there one thing, one message that you'd like to send out to the community of Nashua and everyone else?
Well, I think the level of passion and dedication of the community leaders is inspirational. And I think Jim Dodges is a fantastic leader.
I agree.
I think I love he may be operating in a bit of a liberal vacuum these days in light of the current political climate. But I want to give him all the strength and encouragement he needs to keep fighting the good fight, promote multiculturalism, promote pluralism, promote inclusiveness, and build those communities where we can promote a very positive future for our youth.
Excellent. Steve, thank you so much for coming
Thanks,
to the
Raphael.
program. You see, it was fun.
That's great.
I told you.
Fantastic.
And thank you for being with us. As you can see, very cool man, very passionate. This man can be an asset to our community. Let's see how we can plug him in, okay? And once again, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Your host, your friend, your CHW, Rafael Calderon. God bless you. Have a good night.
Hi, I'm Orlando. Welcome to Bonneville & Son, located at 625 Hooksett Road in Manchester, New Hampshire. We have a huge inventory with over 400 vehicles to choose from: Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, certified pre-owned, used vehicles, and more. Our service department keeps your vehicle running like new. With a Miles of Smiles card providing multiple discounts to our loyal customers, you're part of the family now. Once you buy a vehicle here, you're not a customer. You become part of the family. See it for yourself. Go on to dealerrater.com, where we've been Dealer of the Year for 5 years in a row. ¡Wow! Y no te olvides, yo también hablo español, ayudando a toda mi comunidad de New Hampshire. 4 generaciones, una pasión, creer en Bonneville.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.